No, I don't expect that. And I don't expect cats that we had when I was a little kid. I don't expect to see them, but those, and if you've ever lost a pet that you cared about, you've gone through the same feelings. But those pets are those lives that God made interact with our lives in certain ways. And I think for a good purpose, they help shape us and give us character and build in us character traits and qualities that we ought to have. Some people never express any kind of compassion to another human being, but they learn how to express it to a pet, taking care of a cat or a bird or something. There was a guy, Hermann Goering, one of the Nazi generals, who didn't think twice about helping the Nazis experiment with Jews and use them as animals in the laboratory. It's the most hideous, barbaric tortures of human beings, and they went home and slept soundly every night without ever bothering them. They had a pet parakeet, and he took care of that bird, and when the bird was resting, he wouldn't turn the lights on. He didn't want to disturb the bird. Well, when the bird died, he cried like a baby when he had to bury it. So, animals have a way of touching the lives of men and women. And so I put that subject in the context of verse 10. A righteous man regardeth the life of his beast. And this verse came to my mind a few times we had to bury pets in our yard. And, I'm sorry, I'm teary-eyed. Certain things make me emotional. And this is, I guess, one of them. But this verse always comes to my mind when I'm thinking about having lost a dog that we all loved, or little rabbits. They give and they give and they give affection, they give love to you. They respond to your care of them. And so I think a righteous man regardeth the life of his beast. That's a simple statement in the Bible, but it says a lot. It touches a whole lot of things. And in keeping with the command God gave about the mother bird and the dignity of cooking a kid in its own mother's milk, what a act of bad taste, bad judgment a man would be guilty of and engaged in it. But a righteous man is tender towards the animals in his control. He says in the second half of verse 10, the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. That's certainly true. The tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. Judas is a great example of someone who rewarded the tender mercies that Jesus Christ showed to him. The kindness he showed was to help betray Christ to those who wanted him dead. He told the Jews where they could find Christ or where they could apprehend Christ at such and such time and place. They paid him 30 pieces of silver for it. And then after they had apprehended Christ, and he came to his senses about it, he'd throw the money back at their feet and said, I have betrayed innocent blood. And they said, what do we care? What's that to us? They had gotten what they wanted. They had Christ arrested, and he was well on his way to being tried and hopefully executed. And they weren't bothered by his conscience. So the tender mercy, which was in essence wickedness, that he showed to Christ, was then returned to him again. He got the same treatment from these men who he thought, these are my friends. They paid me, I gave them important information. But then when he changed his mind, they didn't care about him. Their tender mercy was cruel towards him, and just like his had been towards Christ in Matthew chapter 27. But in the context here, verse 10, I think he's comparing how a righteous man and an unrighteous man, or a wicked man, both treat their beasts or treat their animals. The wicked would be one who abuses and he mistreats and he hurts and tortures poor animals. He neglects his animals. The kid down the street that does that in the neighborhood, he becomes the one who sets a house on fire and burns a whole family down one day when he's an adult, because he's never learned how to love anything, people or animals. And there's stories like that in the news. Some kid who always torturing animals, and they wonder what a surprise it is that he's murdering people or abusing other human beings later on in life. The tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. And the wicked can be extremely cruel, and they seem to have no conscience about it any longer. Now let's go to verse 11. Proverbs 12, verse 11 says, "He that tilleth his land shall be satisfied with bread, but he that followeth vain persons is void of understanding." Here's another call to industriousness and hard work, not to laziness. In the verse, the man who follows after vain persons is like the son who refuses to go to work when his father tells him to go to work and till the ground like he's supposed to do. And he justifies, or he rationalizes not farming, not tilling the ground. If I plant cotton, the weevil, the bug might destroy it. If I plant potatoes, the potato bugs might come and destroy my crop. If I plant tomatoes, those tomato worms will show up and eat too much of it. So better play it safe. Let's not farm anything. Let's not plant anything. Well, that guy's a fool, thinking he's playing it safe. He's going to go hungry eventually. But Christ cursed a fig tree when it should have brought forth fruit, because evidently somebody had not tilled that ground. They had not cultivated that fig tree as it ought to bring forth fruit. But he says in verse 11, "He that tilleth his land shall be satisfied with bread." There's a great spiritual application you can make. If you have fruit, or you have a gift, then you ought to till it and nurture it and cultivate it and help that, and ask God to cause that talent or that gift that you have can blossom, become even greater for God's use, for God's service, whether it's some skill or talent or musical instrument you play or some hobby, some pastime you engage in. Find some way that God can take that interest and that thing you seem to have a natural gift for and use it in the service of Jesus Christ, or some way to glorify God, or even just to use it in an honorable way to put food on your table, to feed your family and take care of your household. He that tilleth his land shall be satisfied with. But he's not a lazy man, the guy that's out there tilling the ground. And the person in the second half of verse 11, "But he that has followed vain persons is void of understanding." That, again, that's the guy who's too lazy to work and following the advice of others that say, "No, don't do it because you plant that crop, there's a bug out there, there's a pest out there that might come and destroy it. You don't run the risk of it. Just don't plant anything. Play it safe." Verse 12, "The wicked desireth the net of evil men, but the root of the righteous yieldeth fruit." The wicked desireth the net of evil men. Back in chapter 1, verse 17, he said, "Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird." The wicked, he wants to borrow the net that somebody else has been able to use successfully and catch the prey that doesn't see the net there, doesn't see the trap set for it. And if he can use that method or that approach to catching prey, whether it be catching a bird's net, catching a fish, if he's got a better fishing net, if a guy's a net fisherman, then he wants to either borrow that guy's net or do it the same way that guy's doing it. And hopefully the same success will come to him. Now, there's a great net that's spread out in the world today, and it's out there hopefully hoping that the person that's set for, like a trap set for somebody, and it's hoping that the people will not recognize it and see it for what it is. And people use this net, and it's called advertising. The advertisement industry in the world today is like a net that's spread out there. Everybody wants to use it and use it to their advantage. And the wicked use it to catch suckers to buy things they don't need and to do things they don't need to do, to engage in activities they have no real business engaging in. It's only going to make them more broke. But they do it anyway. And churches sometimes try to do that, whether it's radio or television or the internet or magazines or newspapers. When we were living in Florida one time, there was one church that was doing a telephone survey, calling people at random, asking them certain religious survey questions, trying to build up a mailing list of people interested in their church, or they could try to sort of hook into coming to their church by using this sort of neutral telephone marketing. And nobody likes telemarketers. I don't care if they're calling from church. I especially don't like those kind. Those are people that ought to know better. But nobody likes it, you know. But there was one church trying that approach. They're trying to sell you on all the activities they had at their church and why you ought to go there and why you ought to be part of it. And they weren't. It's amazing how churches aren't trying to market themselves based upon what they're preaching or the gospel of salvation. Now they might. And I take that back. Let me back up. Some of these churches do market themselves based upon what they preach, but when they talk about what they're preaching, they always say, come and hear an uplifting, inspiring, warm service that'll warm your hearts and good for the whole family. You know, basically they're offering you, Reader's Digest magazine, or they're offering you Guideposts magazine, or some feel-good sermon by their minister week after week. And nobody leaves there challenged, nobody leaves there thinking, nobody leaves there learning something more of the Bible. Nobody leaves there with their faith increased. All they leave there with is their flesh satisfied. Well, that felt good. I want to come back and feel good again. They don't go there with their hide chap, the guy who chewed me out for not being what I ought to be as a Christian. And I'm not like that really, but sometimes that might be, but you don't hear any of that in this day and age. And, every brand is always better than brand X, the other brand, This drug can do what no other drug can do, and this car costs less than any other car in its class. And the way they promote things is there's always some little thing that tips you off that's a lie. Whatever they're saying to you is no better than the other product. Hey, Stater Brothers toilet paper wipes your backside just as much as the Charmin or the name brand stuff. And the idea that we're going to compare, pillowy softness, triple ply of the stuff, when you think about where you put it and what you use it for, who in the world cares? And yet, if you're delicate, maybe you care. You guys, you're a little too sensitive in that regard. That's your business. But the net that's laid out there is to trick people into turning loose of their finances, get them to buy something, get them to join something, get them to go somewhere and support something that they don't need, they probably don't want if they were given a choice, and it's not going to, produce anything positive or fruitful in their life in the long run. Why in the world would someone spend $100 a pop to go watch the Lakers play basketball? I think that's about what tickets start at, $100 a pop.
Wow.
Who in the world cares?